Illini Nation, it's your man in the middle, Deon Thomas, bringing to you another fresh version of Champaign on Ice. And as always, I bring you nothing but the very best. But today's Champaign on Ice is brought to you by Bet Rivers. So make sure you go online, check them out. They're going to need you the same as I need my man here with me today, Marcus Liberty. All of you guys know who he is, but let's just touch a little bit on who he used to be, who he was, who he is, and how he's transformed all of this stuff into what he's doing today. He is one of the only that I know of two-time parade All-Americans back in 86 and then in 87. He was also in 1987 Mr. Basketball for the state of Illinois, not to mention the very best basketball player in this country, not just in the state, Illini Nation, but in the country. Went on to get drafted in the second round to the NBA, spent 4 years in the NBA, but had a 12, 13-year professional career. He's taken all of that and brought it back home, but we'll get into that a little bit later today. Doc, I appreciate you being on with me today, baby. Thank you. Man,
you know, it's always a pleasure, Deon, man, to be on some of these podcasts that a lot of us have now. And it's awesome, man, to be joining you today.
Oh, yeah, we definitely going to get into that, too, because, you know, I've listened to your podcast, man, and you got that thing rocking, bro. I appreciate it. And I want Illini Nation to know it so they can hear it, so they can go on to subscribe to it, because you covering Chicago basketball, man, and you got a myriad of things that you can get into because we have such a long history of basketball. But this is something I'm going to tell you, and I don't know if you know this, but when we played against each other, my fresh sophomore year was your senior year at King. Mm-hmm. I was so excited to play against you, and I was scared as hell all at the same time. and I'm going to be real with you because, you know, when I came in this game as a shorty, I didn't play until I was a freshman in high school. My brother sent me to Simeon because he thought that Bob Hambrick could make me like he made Ben Wilson. But, of course, Benji passed. And, bro, you were that kind of player that my brother wanted me to be, which is that all-around, you know, just big guard. I'm going to call you a guard because everybody will put you as a small forward, power forward, whereas today you were the prototypical guy that's playing today. Would I be wrong in that that comparison?
No, I mean, you're hitting it all. You hit it right on the nose, man. That's what I always wanted to be. That's what I was, you know, growing up in, you know, Chicago on the South Side, you know, learning the game of basketball from my fathers and my brothers. They always taught me how to dribble the basketball. They said one thing, if you just can be one-dimensional type player, only can shoot, then you easy to guard. So I had to work on my ball handling skills. So I went to a lot of camps. I went to a Mel Davis camp. That's actually how I really got it, because he taught me the fingertips and how, you know, to control the basketball. So that I give a lot of credit to him, but my family also gets the credit too.
You know, you mentioned your family, you mentioned your brothers, man. Your people don't realize how good of basketball players both of your brothers were, as a matter of fact. And my first time playing basketball, and this is God's honest truth, I'm in 8th grade, summer before my going into my freshman year. I'm walking back in Hamilton Park. I'm walking home. My brother's out there hooping with your brother and some other dudes. And was like, hey, we need another player. Come out here and play. And I'm like, dude, I had never played before. I go out there. I think I'm just bumming it up, right? So on the walk home, my brother tells me, he's like, dude, you're not playing baseball no more. You're playing basketball. And I'm like, why? He was like, do you realize those dudes you were on the court with? And he mentioned Stretch. He, you know, Frederick Hughes' brother was out there, Chris, and some other dudes. And I'm like, no, I don't know nothing about these cats, man, because I didn't.
Right.
And he was like, well, you playing? He was like, if you can play with them, you can play. Tell everybody that's on here a little bit about your brothers, man, because they got to give them love, because both of your brothers can play. And they seem to have lived in Hamilton Park.
Well, both of my brothers were street guys. You know, they stayed in the streets, man. They always go, you know, places to play basketball. I was the one that they kind of protected away from that until I got older enough. But yeah, they were the ones always. Durrell, my brother Stretch, who you was talking about, he's no longer with us, rest in peace. But he was the one that everybody pretty much knew. And then my older brother, Edgar,
Yep.
and I have a half brother too that played basketball. So we all played basketball. We hung out, but Daryl Stretch was the one that people really knew. But Edgar was probably the best out of all of us. But he let the streets really get him. He didn't get that opportunity, you know, to really shine because the streets, you know, captivated him, and he didn't get that opportunity. But he did enroll in Simeon. My older brother was at Simeon, but I remember the story. Hambrick said, "I know the name, but I never seen the face."
Wow.
So he never really even went to school, man. So he just missed out on his opportunity.
Yeah, and you know, we grew up in, bro. We know how easily that can happen. I mean, it happened to my brother as well. He played basketball and football, and you know, where he should have been is not where he ended up.
That's right.
But you say Daryl, your brother ended up going to Simeon. How'd we lose you to King there?
You know what, man? I tell people this story all the time, but I never really told it publicly like this. My mom went to Simeon.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my mom went to Simeon. I had cousins, the Dawsons. Those are my kin folks, the Rices. Yeah, those are all. So my family all pretty much went to Simeon High School, and then my uncles, the elementary school that Hambrick was teaching at, they all went to there. You know, so Hambrick used to joke with him all the time. Why I missed out on the main one I needed to get? You know, you guys gave me everybody else but the one I really wanted.
Oh my gosh. But you know, I would have loved to have had you at Simeon, because then I would have been able to learn from you, from Nick, and from Irvin, and then I'll follow all three of you to Illinois after that, and it would have been sick. But we go back to that, you know, going back to the high school time. I mean, Marcus, you were the baddest man on the planet in the city, bro. And I'm just gonna say it. You were, like I said, you were one of the guys that I looked up to, and as I was going through and watching you play. You talk about how your brothers pushed you. They gave you the fingertip drills. What was some of the other things? What was your drive? I mean, because that's what always interests me. I mean, yeah, my brothers kicked our butts and pushed us along, but what was your drive to really become the player you did?
It was kind of like your situation, being thrown in the fire. You know, my dad threw me out there. We used to do pickup basketball all the time, but I never played with him. Not one time. Until this particular day, this particular weekend, they needed an extra man. It's kind of like what your brother said. No, you playing. My dad said, no, you playing. I said, no, I'm not. I'm hanging out with my buddy over here. We throwing rocks. We doing kid things, you know, throwing crab apples and doing running and all that type of stuff. But my dad on this particular day said, no, you're going to play. So he made my brother go find me, bring me on the court. I didn't know nothing about it. Didn't know how to dribble. Didn't know how to shoot. I was throwing the ball over the basket, dribbling off my foot. But it was this particular play, man. I ran down one of my cousins. They had stole the ball and they was running for a layup. And I jumped and I blocked the shot. And I got a taste of success. And everybody was like, man, yeah. So the next day, I talked to my dad. I said, I think I want to try it. I think I want to learn the game. He said, now, if you're going to learn it, you got to wake up every morning at this time. You know, and I'm like, okay. So we was doing it every day, every weekend. I was out there on the court and he taught me the game. And from there on, I said, I love it. I love competing. I love listening. I love learning the game. That's why when people see me play, they say your fundamentals are so tight. It's because my dad taught me the game the right way.
Let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up yet with Bet Rivers, now's the time. Bet Rivers Sportsbook is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. When you win at Bet Rivers Sportsbook, they pay fast. And now, it's even faster. With Rush Pay, instant approval for withdrawals. It's safe. It's secure, it's reliable. With March Madness right around the corner, there's never been a better time to give Bet Rivers Sportsbook a try. Go to betrivers.com today or download Bet Rivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Well, yeah, I mean, you can tell that. And as I mentioned earlier, you are what players are today, and you were that 20 years ago. So it's just crazy how far advanced your dad's thinking was, your family's thinking was, in making you an overall basketball player. And that did that for you in the city. As I mentioned earlier, two-time Parade All-American, McDonald's All-American, Mr. Basketball in the state of Illinois. You garnered your reputation playing at King. How was it? And I loved Coach Cox, especially after graduation, because y'all used to put it on us. So didn't really like it very much then. But can you tell a little bit about your time at King leading up into your senior year? And I remember when you went to the what was it, the ABCD camp, and it was a big thing when they were talking about it in Chicago when you were going over there at the time. Tell how those experiences, made Marcus Liberty.
Well, for one, I had a coach that believed in me. When you have someone that believes in you, you do just about anything for them. And that's what Coach Cox was to a lot of us. He was a motivator. He saw things that maybe we didn't see in ourselves. And I remember that one day he told me, he said, "You're going to be the number one player in high school, in the country." And I'm looking at him like, I've never left the state of Illinois. What are you talking about in the country? And he saw something in me. He knew he was going to take me to these national camps and do all these great things. But I did have a lot of older players that helped me along the way as well. Tracy Dildy, who's now coaching, assistant coach. He was a head coach in college. He was our point guard my sophomore year. So I learned a lot from him. He used to tell everybody, on our team that Marcus is like a point guard. He thinks just like I do. So we basically had 2 point guards out there. So he started to, tell me things that I started believing. I started believing it, and he took me up on his wings, and the rest was history, man. When by the time my junior year came, and let's go back a little bit. Well, Cox saw some things that he was a visionary. He saw things that we probably didn't even see. Like I remember one time he took us, it was the state championship game. Of course, it was Simeon downstate. Ben Wilson and them was playing. And he took me and Laverdis Robinson to the game down in Champaign. And I was wondering why. But I saw all the people. We had on our King jackets, and we looking at each other like, we got to get down here. This is exciting. The crowd, the people who was in the game. And I said, we have to get back down. We got to get down here, man. If Simeon can do it, we can do it. So I started thinking, I was like, that's why Cox brought us down here. He wanted us to see it. So if we see it, then we would want to get there, So next year, sure enough, we were down in Champaign-Urbana, man, because of what Cox had got an opportunity to show me and Laverdis, and the rest is history after that.
Like you said, motivated vision, kids today, and same with your kids, which we'll get into, and we'll talk about what you're doing now. But the first thing to knowing or believing you can do something is to see it. So it was vision. It was a visionary move for Cox to take you guys out of Chicago, to take you down there, because at that time, Illini Nation, there was no AAU. So you were with your high school teams, whatever tournaments you were playing in, throughout the state of Illinois, or practice or things like that, you were with your high school team. So for him to think ahead, to be able to put you in that environment was definitely a very smart thing, because you guys, of course, it was always Simeon and King were really the dominant forces in the city. And I remember stepping down the court with you my sophomore year, which you guys beat us that year, because Hamburg didn't play freshmen on varsity, so I had to play. And I'm out there with Deon Butler and Melvin Nunn and all of those guys. And now I can't remember the score, but I do know you guys won that game. So, oh yeah, it was. I remember that, but I remember watching you and Laverdis, and by that time, Johnny Selby, some of the other guys that have been during my generation were on that team. But you were a senior. So going into that game, that city championship game, what was your thought process? Of course, it was beat Simeon. I know that, and get downstate. But what were you thinking as the senior, knowing that this was your last shot to get downstate?
Can't go out like a loser, man. I at least wanted to have an opportunity to get back to the state. tournament, and we had young guys. We had 2 freshmen starting, and we lost a lot of games. We lost to Dunbar twice. We lost to Collins High School. So we lost to a lot of teams, but the main objective was to get to the city championship. And we know anything can happen. Anything is possible. And I just got hot at the right time. I started rolling, and next thing you know, we started playing some games. We played against Collins again, and then we had to play, Simeon again. And I was like, we're not losing. We're not losing. And I just told the freshmen, y'all just follow my lead, and the rest was history. We get downstate, and then we play against a top East St. Louis Lincoln team with LaFonso Ellis, and they had a lot of athletes. And I just think the freshmen wasn't ready for that, but it helped Jamie, in the future.
It did. It definitely stepped them up because, Jamie and I, of course, did battle the next 3 years before I left, and they ended up knocking me out my senior year. So I know that feeling that you were trying to evade. But, you do that, you get all these accolades your senior year. It comes down to making a choice. I heard for a long time it was Syracuse. And then you of course, you end up going to Illinois. You and I both know Jimmy Collins played a huge part in that, as he did in my life, and I know he did in yours. Walk me through that, and then walk me through a little bit that freshman year, because I'll speak for me first. Okay. Culture shock. Mm-hmm. Coming from the west side of Chicago, where the only white people I saw were police, right, to being dropped on the campus in Champaign, where that was pretty much all you saw. So walk me through your freshman year, going into making your decision, and then how your freshman year was on campus.
Well, that decision was really hard, because I used to see 2 coaches at a lot of my basketball games, and that was Lou Henson and Jimmy Collins, and Jimmy Boeheim and Wayne Morgan. 2 orange and blue schools that, really wanted my service. They really wanted me to play for them. And I can remember going to visit Syracuse, and I'm watching they practice, and I'm seeing Derek Coleman, get dunks from Sherman Douglas and Stevie Thompson dunking, and all these guys, they were just playing. Boeheim was just letting them play, and I liked it. And they even let me, participate, in some of that. Back then you wasn't supposed to participate, and I guess Jim Boeheim was liking what he saw, and Jim Boeheim told me this, man, and it's a true story. He says, if you come to Syracuse, I'm going to let you pretty much play wherever you want. He said, mark my words, if you go to Illinois, they're going to stick you in the post. And that resonated with me to this day, listening to what he had said to me, right? And my high school coach, I did a verbal commit right then and there. I said, I'm coming to Syracuse, and Cox was like, no, Marcus, you're just going off with, your emotions and all that. Don't sign nothing. That's what he told me. Don't sign anything. He said, you got to go visit Illinois. And I said, all right. So I visited Illinois and had a good time, of course, hanging out with Nick and the fellas, Irvin, Lowell Hamilton, and they showed me a good time. And now I'm confused, and Coach Collins, who was heavily recruiting me, and he was from Syracuse. So he's definitely not trying to lose that battle between Syracuse and Illinois, because he's at Illinois and not at Syracuse. So he's like, Marcus, I know it's tough, man, but who's going to love you like Chicagoans are? And I'm like, I started thinking, I was like, yeah, that's not too far, for him to come. My mom can come see me. My dad can come see me play. He said, you already established that. Yeah. You have to do that again in Syracuse, and I started thinking, and I said, yeah, maybe you're right. And then I started building that relationship back up with him again, because I was pretty much trying to cut him off because I knew I was going to Syracuse.
Right.
And I started building that relationship back up with Coach. I said, you know what, I'm coming. I'm coming to Champaign to go to school, and the rest was me figuring out things because now you got the SAT, you got to take that, you know, you got to do a lot of things. And I'm going to share something with a lot of the Illini fans who probably don't know. I know they don't know this. It was, I took the test and something didn't look right on the test. So the SAT, you know, testing, you know, people were saying that something don't look right. Right. So even though I passed it, a lot of people don't know I passed the test. So they said, doesn't look good. So I'm in the bridge, you know, in Champaign at the bridge, uh, in school. And then Coach Collins comes by to the dorms. He says, Marcus, uh, they're not going to let that fly. So you need to retake the test. And I'm like, man, for real? He said, yeah, you got to retake the test. So Coach Collins figures out a way to get me there, and we get to Norman, Illinois, to retake the test. I retake the test. I'm nervous. Coach Collins said, "Man, you got this. You got this, Marcus. Go do it. Go knock it out." So I get up there, take the test, get done with the test. About a week and a half later, back in Champaign, in the bridge, Coach Collins comes to the dorms. Marcolis, he called me Marcolis. He said, Marcolis, you passed the test. I said, what? Yeah. He said, you passed the test. So I said, oh, cool. So now I can play my freshman year. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play my freshman year, you know, and Coach Collins did after that told me, he said, but Lou Henson doesn't want to bring any attention to that. So he'll rather just you sit out and not play at all. Only three people know this story. Me,
Wow.
Lou Henson, and Coach Collins. I never shared this story with anybody. And that was one of the hardest things for me to do, to stay there, because I'm like, he didn't even want to stand up for me. So it kind of hurt me. And a lot of people don't know that story, man. I was actually, you know, eligible to play, but he didn't want to fight it. So he just let it be.
Wow. I didn't know that. And that is, I tell you, that's going to be a tough story for Illini Nation to hear, because that's a big surprise. I had no clue.
And that actually hurt me because I didn't get an opportunity to play my freshman year. And it could have been a lot of reasons, you know, that the squad was stacked, you know, and the team was stacked, you know, with a lot of great players. But for me to lose that year and not be able to practice, not be able to hang out as much as I wanted to on the court with my teammates, it really hurt me, because this is what I'm accustomed to. Now I'm in a foreign territory, me not playing basketball, going to school and, you know, being a student, and trying to figure out things on the fly. You know, it felt like I felt like an outcast.
Wow. It's so funny you share that, because you know, when I came in my freshman year, and I couldn't play because of that whole investigation with Bruce Pearl. I felt a lot of what you just described. I felt at one point that the universe wasn't on my side, so I felt like an outsider. Because I was upset and angry and mad at everybody, I didn't come and hang out with you guys as much as I could have or should have, because I actually could practice, but I was being a baby. I'm like, man, I'm not going over there. I regret that now, because if I would have been able to hang around you, watching you do what you do, you know, and watching, you know, Nick and some of the other guys, I think that would have thoroughly helped me moving forward, more than, you know, of course, me living the life of a typical and regular college student, because I was having a little bit too much fun.
Right, right.
You know, so I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I'm surprised. I thought I was the only one. It's always good to know that you're not the only one, but not in this case, I guess. So you go through the freshman year. Freshman year is hard. As I said, I feel you. You get into your sophomore year. Now you're on the court, and I'm going to assume this is when Marcus, you know, at least internally, starts to blossom.
Oh, well, it happened a little bit, you know, in that summer, because we were playing at Impey. You know, everybody knows Impey. If you're from, you know, Champaign or went to school there, that the basketball players pretty much ran the gym. So
Yeah.
it was that summer, Ken Norman, Mitchell Wiggins, they were all coming to hang out, and it was a packed house. And I can remember Ken Norman guarding me and I'm guarding him. And I did a move and I went baseline and came back on the other side and dunked it. And it was on him. And I was like, oh, I'm ready. I'm back. I'm back. And all the guys were, cheering. And then next thing I know, practices started with us over at Huff Gym, and we starting to, gel, and we starting to get after it. Guys wanting to fight, guys arguing, guys pushing and shoving. That's when I knew we had something special, because when you have stuff like that, it's like the big brother and, the little brother coming in doing his thing. You're like, no, it's not your time yet. And we would just go at it, man. It didn't matter who it was. And that's when I knew we were special. Even though our team was that loaded, we all knew we had one common goal. And a lot of people don't know this story about us. Everybody was interchangeable. But if you look at the leading scorer, he didn't average like 20 points a game. Mm-hmm. It was probably 16 or 17 points that I think Nick or Kenny was averaging. The rest of us was like 9, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we all knew that any given day, somebody can go for 20, somebody can go for 30. So we knew that, and we didn't get caught up in all of the hoopla that Marcus has to, because Marcus is the number one high school player in the country. He has to score 30 points like he did at King High School. And I realized that, and Coach Henson and Jimmy Collins was a big part of that. I think that's one thing that I really respect both of our coaches for. They didn't let me try to get caught up in the hype, meaning what you did in high school, you can do it here. And I respect Coach Henson for doing that, for one, because it could have easily went the other way. I could have went like, man, I need to score 30 points and I'm not scoring 30 points. I'm upset and this and that. I never got upset. Coach Henson did a great job with that. He brought me along slowly, and I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate that. And I think once we figured it out, we knew the rest was history as far as us getting to the tournament. Once we get to the tournament, we was like, we got to take one game at a time. And it was all played in the big domes, these big old domes, man, in the background. So it was hard to shoot, in those gyms. But Kenny Battle and Nick Anderson and Lowell Hamilton, we pretty much rode their shoulders. We was riding their shoulders all the way through. And as you know, two of them got hurt. Kenny Battle got hurt and Lowell Hamilton got hurt. It could have easily went south, meaning I could have said, man, I ain't playing the minutes that I'm accustomed to playing. I can't really get loose. I could have pouted on the bench and said, no, but on this particular day, it was my time. It was me and Irvin Small time and Larry Smith to come off the bench and provide, some energy so our guys can pull this one out. And sure enough, it was against Louisville. Never Nervous Purvis. We all know what he was bringing to the table. And we went out there and competed, and we won the game. And those guys got back healthy, and we had to play Syracuse the next game, and we beat Syracuse. And now it's Final Four time, and it was exciting, man. It was an exciting moment for all of us in 1989.
Well, I can tell you this, man. You guys, that team, then of course you being there was the reason I went to Illinois. It was a huge part of why I took that step. But watching you guys, and I went through this, and I talked to Steve and Kendall about this very same thing. You guys are what today's basketball is way back in 1989. This positionless flow of basketball where you were all interchangeable spots is what is what that team was then. Also, not just that, you guys had the longer shorts, because you remember how our shorts looked in high school. We had them nut cutters, man. And so you guys had, of course, they weren't the Michigan all the way down to your knee short, but you guys were and Michael Jordan. We'll give him a little bit of pub too. But you guys on the collegiate level were the long shorts, the interchangeable parts, the energy, outside of the five slammer jammer, all five people dunking the basketball. Well, you guys went about 8-9 deep dunking the basketball. I mean, tell a little bit just about how that construct of that team and how you guys all molded together to be as successful and have as much fun as you guys were having.
Well, Deon, you love it when people, especially the media, talking about you. And Vitale was one of those guys that was always talk and say, these guys play above the rim. And next, all of a sudden, he gave him with his nickname, the Flyin Illini, the Flyin Illini, the Flyin Illini. And it took off and ran from there. So we wanted to live up to that. So every time we played a game, somebody was going to get dunked on. Somebody was going to get an alley-oop thrown to him. Somebody was going to come out on a fast break and get dunked on. So we wanted to live up to that. And we did just that, So everybody on our team, like you said earlier, was interchangeable. We played above the rim. That was a special team, man. Anytime you can get someone to nickname you, you're special, just like the five slammer jammer, So I love that name. Every time I go out in public, people talk about that team. Some say it could be one of the teams that come out of Roosevelt. I'm not going to disagree with them on that. And I just want everybody to know that each and every one of us love our school. Every one of us wanted our school to be the best. We wanted to win that national championship. And then when D Brown and them came through in 2005, we were all cheering and wanting them to win that national championship. And now we here in 2021, we won Ayo Sumu and his crew to win that national championship. So we all big supporters of our school, man. And we all talk about it.
Oh yeah, ain't nothing but love. And that's one of the things, I use the phrase Illini family all the time. Basketball program is a family. I mean, the other sports, I'm sure they're the same way. But if you encompass you're walking down the street and you hear somebody yell ILL, there's always a response of an INI. The University of Illinois itself has a family and a fan base that's amazing. But our basketball family, I believe, is even tighter than that. And I think a lot of that is because we went through a lot of those same battles and scars and bleeding on the uniform. And as you said, Coach Henson and Coach Collins, Coach Nagy, Coach Coombs always kept us, together and kept us in that, never allowing egos to get bigger than what they were, and really kept a lot of those things under wraps. So it's great to hear you say that. But I, in my opinion, and I'll say it, I love the 2005 team, D Brown, Darren. I love all of those dudes. Augie is my man. But the Flyin Illini is the best team that ever played at the University of Illinois. You can't say it, but I can. And I hope those guys don't get upset about it. But, man, I mean, I haven't seen a team, and this is my years of coaching. This is my years of playing that was like you. Maybe UNLV, maybe. But I mean, I
can either say, I would respect that one, UNLV and Georgetown, that 1983-84, Patrick Ewing, Reggie Williams at Wingate, that team was,
was awesome. I agree. But the only reason I say that the comparison is to that UNLV team. Tallest player on their team was 6'7", 6'8".
That's right.
That was their center. I mean, you guys are almost similar. Patrick Ewing, 7 feet tall. They had a real center, even though they were really good. You guys didn't have a real center.
No, we didn't.
I mean, before you got there was the Blob boy, but he never played that much. And he was like there with Kenny now. So he didn't play as much. But when you guys were that 5 just interchangeable parts, man, I don't know. I get excited about it because I enjoyed watching you guys play probably more than anybody that's going to listen to us talk. I love it. I was, not just a recruit. I was a fan. Right. So you get there, Final Four, of course, it's always heart-wrenching, even for me, and I wasn't even on that team, to lose in the Final Four. But the thought process coming into to that next year when you were still on the team, Kendall, of course, Nick had moved on, and I was coming in. And I've mentioned this before, and I'll say this: the two things that hurt me the most about that investigation was one, that I thought Coach Collins would have been the next head coach. And I think that investigation tarnished him and didn't allow him to do it. And I didn't get a chance to play with you guys.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted, was to be able to play with you and Kendall, Steve, Larry, the rest of you guys that were there, because in my opinion, I thought we're right back in the mix of that thing.
I say this a lot. You were the missing piece. If we had you, now it takes me away from, doing all the battling, with the bigger guys on the other team. That's you doing that now. And now I'm, back to that wing position and doing some damage from there. So if we had you, along with Larry Smith, because Larry Smith got into some things as well, and so we didn't have Larry Smith either. And I think if we had you two, we back there definitely. And we had Kendall, we had Steve Bardo, we had myself, and we were still battling. We were battling people, but we just couldn't pull it through. I mean, I think I was averaging close to 18 points. Kendall was averaging close to 19 points a game. Bardo was doing his thing as always, keeping the team together, making sure everybody's in the right place. So we had the three dogs, and we had some other players that was, just as important to our team. But if we had you and Larry Smith, man, you never know what would happen.
Yeah. Those are the two things that crushed me about that investigation, bro. I mean, you have no idea. And I actually had someone ask me that a while ago, and they were like, "Yeah, what do you? These are the regrets. These are the two. There are no other ones. I don't really care. Those two things are the things that pained me the most." So you have a really good year. Decide to go to the draft. 42nd to Denver, right? If I'm not mistaken, to Denver. How was that rookie year going into Denver? Of course, you're coming off of, a really nice year for yourself, and everybody knew what you could do. I mean, if we had one and dones or going straight to the NBA out of high school, you would have been going straight to the NBA, being a one and done after what you did at King. How was that first year going into with the Nuggets?
Well, I would even want to talk about the draft, because the draft was funny, to me. I worked out for New York Knicks, the Milwaukee Bucks, Portland, the Los Angeles Lakers, the Clippers, Phoenix Suns. So I worked out for those teams. So I'm thinking one of those teams are going to draft me. And Milwaukee calls me the day of the draft and says, keep your phone lines open because we are going to draft you at 16. So I'm like, yes. So the evening comes of the draft, and 16 pick comes around. I'm excited. I'm up. Milwaukee Bucks select Terry Mills out of Michigan. I'm like, whoa. They just called me and told me that they were going to draft me with the 16th pick. So I didn't get drafted. So the draft kept going. Names kept being called. And no Marcus in the first round. And I can remember listening to Doug Collins, and because he was doing the draft. Marcus Liberty's still out there, Marcus Liberty's a great player, he just kept talking about me. And I'm like, man, am I going to get drafted? So now it's coming to the second round. I fell asleep. I said, I'm not going to watch this no more. My mom wakes me up. She says, you just been drafted by the Denver Nuggets. They took you at the 42nd pick. And I'm like, yes. Whew. Right. And then I get a call from one of the majority owners, Pete Bino from Chicago. He's a Chicagoan, real successful businessman. And he says, we glad to have you. We happy that you, I know you're not happy, but we're happy that you slipped that far. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, yeah, whatever. and then I get there. Doug Moe is the one that actually drafted me. Doug Moe, he saw some things in me, like one of his former players, Alex English, who give you buckets. So I remember going down there and working out and doing the summer camps with them. And before the season started, Doug Moe is fired.
Oh.
So I'm like, oh man. So now they bring in Paul Westhead. who's another guy. You know, I watched his Loyola Marymount teams. I remember him coaching the Lakers. So I know he likes to get up and down. So I'm like, that's what I like, you know, so I'm cool with that. But he couldn't change that because he had a lot of veterans, you know, Orlando Wards, Walter Davis, Michael Adams, T.R. Dunn, just to name a few. Those guys were NBA, you know, journeymen that been there for a while, and you can't just push them to the side and say, I'm gonna play these young guys, you know. And me and Chris Jackson was the lottery pick for that team. And I was, you know, the second rounder. So me and him came in together. He didn't play that much either, you know. So the fans are really like, why do we draft him so high if we're not going to play him?
Mm-hmm.
So he was going through it with me, man. So luckily I had him to go with me, you know, through this. And then second year comes around, they fire Paul Westhead. So I'm like, man, this is crazy. You know, I get drafted. Now you got to learn these different coaches' philosophies. You know, they have all these different, you know, philosophies of what they think, how the team should be ran and this and that. And so I just learned Doug Moe's system, and then Doug Moe gets fired. Then I learned Paul Westhead's system, and then he gets fired. So now they bring in Dan Issel, another, not a Illini guy, but an Illinois guy. He's from the state of Illinois. And he knew my game. He watched me in practice because he was doing, you know, the commentary of our games. He was commentating our games. So he knew a lot. He saw a lot in me. He said, I'm going to give you that opportunity. He started me. The next year he started me. I was averaging probably about 14 points a game. And then all of a sudden we started losing. And of course, you know, I was drafted in the second round. So if things not going well, let's pull Marcus out, you know. So they take me out and they start Reggie Williams and Mark Macon. I think Mark Macon was a lottery pick too. And I never got that starting position back. And then I'll tell you the story, man. I have to tell it because people need to hear stories. You know, I have an agent, and the agent job is to give you advice. So my 3 years, I signed a 3-year contract with the Denver Nuggets, and that was unheard of back then. You know, people wasn't signing 3-year contracts, you know, being drafted in the second round.
No, you're right. 100% right on that.
So Denver gave me 3 years, right? And then that contract was about to expire. So Bernie Bickerstaff, he says to my agent, we're going to give Marcus an 8-year contract.
Wow.
8 years. And my agent is the one that's supposed to give me legal advice. He tells me to turn it down. And I'm looking like, what? You know, that's enough to take care of my family. You know,
Right.
we'll be good. But he put it in my head, I can get you that $1 million in 2 years. I said, oh. So I turned it down. Because of the advice he gave me, I turned it down. It took a $650,000 contract. And before like 3 or 4 games we into the season, they trade me. Bernie Bickerstaff could have been feeling some kind of way. You know, if he doesn't want to be here, then we'll get rid of him. And they traded me to Detroit. Didn't play that much at all in Detroit. And you know how that goes. You don't play, you don't get no contract extension. You don't get anything. So that's my exit. That was my last time playing in the NBA. It really hurt me. So I tell people all the time to make sure you're on top of your age and make sure you run you like you're a business. Understand that people will take advantage of you just so they can get their pockets fat, you know, because that's the only reason why I was saying, why would he tell me to not take that deal? Because it was less money. I wouldn't get the big money until the end of the contract. So he was like, if we do this, you can get paid, you know, in 2 years. And that was just that was a bad part on his part and a bad part on my part because I didn't understand at the time.
Right. Well, I mean, you were young and you just happened to run into the wrong person, man. I mean, and that's terrible, but it's so funny. Let's go back to the draft. It's so funny, Marcus, how our basketball lives parallel. You know, I'm sitting at Coach Collins' house draft night, and after having flown to Orlando, to Milwaukee, to Dallas, to Denver, to New Jersey, and worked out for all these teams. Hey, we're taking you between 17 and 19. Now, this is coming from these various teams. So I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, good. So I'm sitting at coach's house. I'm telling everybody, yeah, I'm going here, you know, between this area. Because all three or four of those teams were in the same area.
Right.
Comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes. Now we're at the bottom. The Bulls called me. Hey, we're taking you with the, I think it was 27th pick at that time. Yeah, because I went first pick, second round. We're going to take you with the 27th pick. I'm like, all right, guys, I'm going next.
Right.
And it came on and they were like, and the Bulls take Dickie Simpkins. We were like, what? I mean, had the whole D in there and everything. I'm getting ready to get up and I'm like, what? So I understand completely what you mean. And I hope Illini Nation understands, man, that thing turns into a business blink of an eye. And if we don't know, we don't know. And we didn't know.
No.
But you nailed one thing right on the head. Second round picks don't get 3-year deals. You know, and I'll tell everybody, when I was working on my deal with Dallas, a lot like you, we had 2 general managers from the time I went to training camp to the time vet camp got ready to roll around. We had 2 general managers.
Wow.
And I'm like, how does this work? So, my agent is like, well, you're going to go down here and do this anyway. And then on, what was the 11th hour, I get a call and he calls me, well, I got a team in Spain that wants to pay you this much, which was more than what they wanted to pay me in Dallas. I'm like, oh, well, if we going to do that.
Right.
So strange how life changes for you. You don't take the 8-year deal. You end up, I go over there thinking I'm coming back the next year, and I never came back.
They made a career over there.
Exactly. But what you're doing now, because that wasn't the end of your stop. I mean, Doc, you had multiple really good years after that. I mean, go on and have a 12, 13-year pro career, both in the CBA and in Europe. Can you tell a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to try to get back into the NBA. Of course, everybody knows your way back to the NBA. You have to go through the CBA, the Continental Basketball Association. So I wanted to do it. I love the game of basketball. I wanted to be able to provide for my family. So I took a deal to do the CBA thing and big grind. You go into truck stops. You're staying at, not these luxury hotels that you were staying in the NBA. So it was a wake up call, but I never looked at myself as being better than the next person anyway. So I was going to ride that ship, and I got an opportunity to actually work out for the Cleveland. Well, actually it was Boston and Cleveland. Boston was the summer before I did the CBA. Didn't make it. I was the last cut. And then Cleveland, it was just a numbers game. They had drafted Chris Mills, and me and him were playing similar positions. And Mike Fratello he liked what he saw in me, but he was like, I got to find minutes for this guy, and we can't keep you. And then I went to the CBA after that. Then the CBA played decent, but then overseas started calling me. Some overseas teams. It was a team in France. They were like, my agent was calling me. My agent said, well, this team in France want to pay you 6 figures. You're not making 6 figures in the CBA. Do you want to take this? I said, man, I never played basketball overseas. I don't know the culture. It would be a shock to me. So I did take the deal. I took the deal though.
I was going to say, how you turned down 6 figures? Woo! No.
I took the deal and I got hurt, because, they want you to play soon when you get off the plane. Soon when I got off the plane, they said, we got to practice, you got to be ready. And I was still kind of loose, so I was doing my thing, dunking and everything in the layup lines and shooting jump shots, making look away passes. So the fans were loving me. They're like, yes, we got an American that can really, play. And probably the second game, I pulled my hamstring. You know, you can't play with no hamstring. You can't jump. You can't run. But they kept me. They didn't want to send me home. But this one, I noticed something about the European, basketball league, how they do things. It was an American in the stands. And I was like, why is he here? So I'm asking the players on the other team, on our team. They's like, you took his place. I'm like, why is he in the gym then? I guess he wanted to see who came in to replace him. And he was Demps. Was it Demps? I think Demps is a general manager. He was a general manager in the league. Dale Demps, I think. Well, anyway, it was him. I took his place. And I said, is that how they do it over here? And sure enough, when it was my time to be released, I saw a guy, coming in the gym, and I'm like, who is this? And they knew I wasn't going to be fully healthy to play. And then they gave me this game. They said, we got a game. It's against Michael Ray Richardson and David Rivers. You're going to guard David Rivers. I said, are you kidding me? Okay, I can't guard him, man. He's a guard. He's a little fast, quick guard. I said, I can't guard him. I tried. I did my best, man. And I think I had like 18 points in that game. David Rivers and, Michael Ray Richardson, they won the game. And the next game, the next day, they was like, we got to release you because you're not healthy for one. And I was fine with that. That time I was fine being released from a team, because I knew I wasn't healthy. And then after that, I started just bouncing around all overseas, man. I went to Turkey, France, Japan, you name it, I was there. Greece. I got an opportunity to play in Turkey against my big fella at King, Rashad Griffin.
Yeah.
And he did the same route as you did, made that like, man, the NBA ain't for me. Let's go. Let me go over to make a boatload of money and do my thing overseas. And he did it. I just couldn't see it, man. But I did have children, I was married at the time. So my family got an opportunity to see different parts of the world. And that's one thing I really loved about it. My daughter school in Greece. They went to school in Japan. They went to school in Sweden. So they got the culture, so they got to experience different cultures. And that's one thing I would always cherish.
There you go. A boy from the West Side and a boy from the South Side who kids grew up and went to school in Europe.
Yep.
Feels pretty doggone good.
Yes, man. Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was.
So, all right, you do that. You come back home. Retirement is here. You decide to take all of your knowledge and dump it into little people. And the reason I say that is because I'm excited about what you do. I want you to tell everyone about what you're doing now and give them a glimpse into the world of Marcus Liberty as you do what Coach Cox did for you, what Coach Collins has done for you, what Coach Henson has done for you, and the myriad of other coaches that you have by taking all of those life experiences and pouring it into these little brains.
Yeah, that's what they did to me. That's what, Coach Collins was the one that actually got me to do what I'm doing. I sat down and talked to him one time and I said, Coach, what do I do? I'm done playing. He says, you like being around kids, don't you? I said, yeah. He said, why don't you just start it off by doing camps? See that, works. Do some camps. And I started doing camps and it just took off from there, and I did it in Chicago and then I moved. I did it in another state in Houston. And then now I'm doing it here in Florida, but Florida is probably the best, kept secret and the best thing for me because my wife now, she helps me with a lot of that, things that I didn't know, the business side of, things, making sure you got your documents and making sure you're doing everything the right way. Mm-hmm. And I said, this is it. I want to be around kids. I want to mentor kids. I get it all the time. People calling me about, can you help me get into college? Can you guide my son? He's ranked but can you tell them what it's all about? And it was just fulfillment to me, because now here it is, just like Coach Collins and Coach Cox and the Hambricks of the world were giving back to their student athletes. I'm doing the same thing now, and no bigger the reward than that, than me doing this, man. And I will be forever indebted to Coach Collins for seeing that in me, and knowing that if I tell Marco, I keep saying Marcolas because that's what he called me. But if Marcus, if he can see that in me, then I can see that in the next young generation or young student athlete. I can give you hope, just like Coach Collins gave me hope.
Well, I love that, man. And I saw on your Twitter page, you and the Dickie V have built up a nice, strong relationship down there in Florida, man.
Yeah, Dickie V is that's my guy. He's got me into coaching. He actually got me into coaching my first coaching gig at a high school here. So me and him built a relationship, and I've been on his private jets flying the games and all that, man. And it's just good, man. Being in a basketball community with Dick Vitale and seeing him, and I mean, with COVID, I don't see him as much now, but every now and then I'll give him a call and just check on him. But he's doing fine, and he's happy that Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers won.
I'm sure.
So he's all Florida. He's all Floridian, man, all the way.
Well, I tell you this, that's the beauty of our world, is the connections that we make, in the relationships that we build, because we never know where they come from, or when they're gonna happen. You like me, Dick Vitale is announcing you when you're playing in the McDonald's All-American game. He's calling you a diaper dandy and all of these other things as he did with me. Now he's your friend. Now he's a mentor. Now he's someone, as you mentioned, got you into your first coaching spot in the high school down there. Basketball is amazing. And I'm gonna say that and wrap up my part, but I appreciate you so much, not just for showing me what type of player I wanted to be, but when I got down to Illinois, how you guys looked out for me and made me the little brother. I took that and I did that for everybody else that came after me. And that was because you guys showed me what vets are supposed to do when it comes to younger players. So I appreciate you for that, brother. I appreciate you for coming on. Oh no, before I get off here, you got to tell us about your podcast, man, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm a little, you covering Chicago basketball and I haven't been on yet. If I ain't love you so much, I'd be hurt.
You definitely go. You definitely got that invite, man, an invitation to be on the show anytime you want to, actually. So, I started a podcast, me and my guy, Robert Reed. It's called All Ball Chicago. We wanted to give back to Chicago, and it was during COVID, so we were stuck at home, wasn't doing anything. So me and him jumped on the podcasting and started doing it, and it took off. And we had Tim Hardaway, we had Nick Anderson. We had a lot of great Chicagoan basketball players, come on and share their story. It's not an interview. It wasn't an interview. I said, it's time for Chicagoans to tell their story, so you know how sometimes you get the mic in your face and or the pad, people writing in the newspapers about you and what they want or what they think. So
Right.
I said, you know what? I want people to tell their story. And that's why we started All Ball Chicago. So you can find us on YouTube, All Ball Chicago. We go Facebook Live, All Ball Chicago. Not getting paid or anything like that. We doing it from the bottom of our hearts. But if somebody wants to come on and sponsor us, we okay with that too. But and then I'm also in the works on another thing, and it's about Illinois basketball, and that's going to be through fan media. That's coming up, where we talk about Illini basketball. So I'm just having fun, man. This is something I always wanted to do, because when I was going to Syracuse, if I was going to go to Syracuse, that's the field I was going to go into, speech communication. So this is fun to me, man. I'm having a ball doing it.
Oh, well, Doc, you're good at it, man. And I'll tell everybody out there, go and check out All Ball Chicago. It's great. I love it. I'm not gonna say I've caught them all, but I've caught a lot of them, and I enjoy it, and I think everybody else would go out would enjoy it as well. But yeah, big fella, we're gonna close out here, man. But I want to give you a minute to, the mic is yours. Give Illini Nation whatever you want to give.
Well, I mean, if you want to follow me, make sure you go to my Twitter page at Give Me Liberty. The real Marcus Liberty. You can find me on Twitter and also on my Instagram, Liberty Edge Basketball, and my Facebook page is Marcus Liberty. Been doing a lot of great things, and I'm gonna continue to do it. And I just want to thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity to come and speak and share some of my knowledge and some of my experiences, some things that we went through, so people better understanding. Sometimes, and I had a professor tell me that at the University of Illinois, and I was a quiet kid, and they said, sometimes you need to open your mouth so people can understand who you are.
Yeah, I love that. And that was probably Jim Anderson that said that. Professor Anderson, Dr. Anderson, Dean Anderson. Now you told me about
it was actually Dr. Anderson and Dr. Philip Bowman.
Oh, well, there you go. There's another one. I'm not surprised. But Doc, man, I appreciate you again, brother. Love you. Thank you for coming on here. I cannot wait to join you guys, you and Rob Reed on All Ball Chicago, man. I've watched it. You guys have a great time, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it. So, all right, Illini Nation, as always, giving you nothing but the best. Make sure you go on to Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. Push that check mark for Champaign on Ice. Subscribe, leave comments. And last but not least, do not forget to follow the Field of 68 Media Network. Give them a like and give them some love, because without those guys, you don't have this guy. So love, peace, and hair grease, Illini Nation. Thank you.